starting something brand new, our attempt to video Tennessee Underground. How you doing?
Doing fine, Steve. How are you today, boy?
Well, we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, we'll try it out. We'll get on the producer and the
out,
technical staff if it doesn't work.
If it doesn't work out well. We had talked just recently about starting kind of a new emphasis, a personal one-on-one communication with everyone in several different areas related to law enforcement. But one particular area of concern after the George Floyd situation in Minneapolis and what's happened since then has been the effect, well, it's had many effects, but one effect is on what's happening with law enforcement officers, not so much because of that incident, but then the reaction to and calls to defund police, the demonstrations and everything were set up across the nation, the autonomous zones that still exist in Portland, for example. And so the climate has changed for law enforcement. You've been in this all your life.
Yes, sir.
And so this is an area, and it is not to reflect on the George Floyd case itself. That verdict is in, and in some aspects that is done, and we could talk a lot about that. But what we're seeing now is some unexpected consequences of this. We talked about last time. I never heard defund police,
right,
until this. I mean, I just never had heard that.
I had neither. No.
So a new thing. So that sets up, and then we're seeing now. Washington Times had a story, and I know that's a right-leaning type newspaper, but still they had the story that they're seeing statistically an increasing number of officers that are deciding to do something else with their lives, either retiring, go ahead and taking retirement, getting off the force, or they're looking for something else to do.
Yeah, and I don't know exactly where they're getting their statistics and this and that, Steve, but that's accurate.
Okay.
The
you
police,
say that why? Because just people you're talking to?
You're seeing it from all over the country.
Okay.
Yeah, all over the country. Especially in your big cities, New York, L.A., and then you get to Seattle and Portland, and they're, really large percentages. Okay. You're having people, of course, retiring, all right? But now you're having people leaving because they're afraid they're going to lose a job. It's not as attractive a job. They're not respected anymore. They're leaving for all of those reasons. Mm-hmm. And one problem is going to be is like in New York City, for example, they've had an inordinate, unusual amount of people leaving, retiring, okay, and just leaving. Well, to make that even worse, the normal number of recruits that they have every year, they were down 2,000 recruits last year. Okay.
People don't want to get into this.
Don't want to get in it. Don't want to get in. And that's the long-term harm that we're going to have from this defunding the police. Okay. When I hear defund the police or lessen the police, the first thing I think of course, I've got a law enforcement background.
Right.
First thing I think is people want to break the law and get away with it.
Okay.
That's what I think. And some really smart guy said one time, all that you need to have for bad stuff to triumph is for good folks not to do anything. And I heard a lot of people speaking out for defunding the police, and for a while we didn't hear many people speak out against defunding the police. Right. And that's, I think,
well, you have said that there's no such thing as a routine traffic stop.
Oh, exactly.
Right? All right. Now, in this environment, with the changes occurring as far as public opinion relations and everything else, does that create a more challenging or difficult situation every time you approach a vehicle now that you don't know? I mean, you have never known, but is this confrontational situation with police is it becoming more aggressive? People less respect, less regard for, fear of?
I think it definitely has gotten worse. And I'm going to tell you this, it's not brand new, okay? When I ran the Highway Patrol CID back in the late 80s and early 90s, okay, every time an officer got killed in the line of duty, it came across my desk. And I saw it increase a lot then. Okay. And that was a long time ago. But now it's even worse than it has been. And what we're seeing, I think, Steve, there's an antagonistic atmosphere that's being built up. And there's a term called isopraxism.
Okay.
I think or I may have made that word up.
Okay.
No, I think it's a real word. But what it means is that we tend to mirror one another's behavior.
Okay.
And when I walk up on the car, if I'm an officer, if the guy driving the car or the lady is afraid of me,
right,
okay, they're going to exhibit signs of that, and it's signs of anxiety. And I'm not sure if it's fear of them or if it's an aggressive thing. Could be one of that. But I'm going to react to that. I'm a human being. No matter how much you train me, my antenna's going to go up a little more, and the situation can escalate from there and get more dangerous as it goes along.
So in the law enforcement business, then what do you do to address this?
Well, training is absolutely necessary, but they talk about reforming the police. As you and I have talked before, the police business reforms every day, every time a new court decision comes down, the training changes.
Okay.
And we're training people nonstop and changing their behavior. But the problem we're fixing to have, Steve, is this. For years we've talked about bad police officers, because we police ourselves as much as we can. And the question is this, has always been, did we hire the wrong person? Or did we hire a good person and put them in a bad environment and they got corrupted in that environment? And I think one of our big problems is going to be now is hiring good people. I'm afraid it's going to be real hard.
But even if you're uncertain about the role that you occupy or the backup that you get, well, for example, the 4 officers in Minneapolis,
Right.
one's already convicted, others are facing a state trial, but then there's now a federal indictment
Right.
on civil rights violations, which means a whole new set of lawyers are another expense that they're no longer in the police union, they've been terminated or have left the force, right? So they're out there totally on their own.
That's exactly right.
All right, now, if I'm contemplating this as a career, I want to add that other element in there. Then how do I get around that? The fact that I may be putting myself in a situation of liability from which there is no escape. That I can be accused, I can be indicted, and and if I'm terminated, I am on my own. Like I said, there is no police union to help me.
That's
now,
right.
there may be fundraisers that go on from political groups in this country or whatever. I don't know what will happen in this case, but I think anybody that's contemplating this life would say, I've got this uncertainty, the role has changed as far as the public relation or perception of me as an officer, and I don't quite know how to respond to that. And then it also creates that thing of, to what am I obligating myself or challenging myself, my family, whatever, if I get into unexpectedly a confrontational situation and something happens.
Every
Right.
point you make
Okay,
is
well,
valid.
well,
Every
well,
point you make is
well,
valid.
I guess
Steve.
what I'm saying, and what we're looking for, I think, as far as input of the people that follow us, is where do we go from here? You know, when you say training, then when the public sentiment is shifting, or when it may be different. I mean, there are going to be some people on one side that say, man, we need to stand behind the police. We got to stand by them more than ever before, right? We got to be blue strong out here, right? Then there will be other people that say, look, this is a whole history. This has been going on for a long time. It's about time it changes. Heck with them, right?
All right.
And then some people just right in the middle. Well, how do you train for that? How do you train for that world? Then?
Perhaps you have to train other people besides just the police. You know, the police is a small part of this. The police, as we discussed before, the police are the ones that are out front.
Okay.
Okay, we're the ones that once our lawmakers pass laws, and it goes through all of that, and the court starts defining what that law means because cases get brought in front of the court and they say, no, that doesn't work, and all that doesn't work. Then the police are expected to enforce those laws. So, and who do they enforce the laws on? People that break the law, or people that draw attention to themselves by their conduct.
Okay.
So the police in themselves, we are reactive, not proactive. We are reactive by nature. So everybody, it's a whole thing we got to look at. You know, not just the police. And I'm for talking about the police. I want the police to change. They need to change. We have to change every day. You know, I remember when I first started in the training business back in the mid-'90s, nobody wanted to hear about ethics, stress,
Okay.
or diffusing confrontations, which is nonverbal means of settling a possibly violent event.
Okay.
By the time by that was in the mid-'90s, by 2005, I'll say, we started getting a lot of requests for those three: ethics, stress, and diffusing confrontations. So the attitudes were already
What brought
changed.
about that change?
Changes? Well, you know, once again, you know, we react to society,
Right.
and the people that come in the police department, or the police force, the law enforcement, come out of that society, and our whole society was changing. We were going from the John Wayne syndrome,
Okay.
which is what we used to call it. We say they're badge heavy, or they had the John Wayne syndrome.
Okay.
We were going from that, we're realizing that it was better to do it without confrontation. And plus lawsuits.
Okay.
And ethics goes without saying. You know, we got to be ethically strong. And we taught a lot of classes about that.
Here's where we're heading, I think, with this discussion. And we're going to be looking for your input, and we're going to establish ways for you to communicate with us through emails and whatever. But, okay, we all realize we've moved into a different world, right? Different environment, okay? You know, how do departments prepare for this? What are we going to see? And then communities, you know, when we get into these discussions, the clarification of the objective of what's going to happen in the community. But how did the police departments prepare for this? And then, what do you do in your life to prepare for this work, right? I mean, how do you address the situation where people are going to say, man, why would I want to do this?
That's right.
Why would I want to do this? Why would I want to make a living this way? Why would I want to raise a family in a situation where I'm out there, male or female, in this kind of situation? Why would I want to do that kind of work?
Your best officers,
Right.
have the frame of mind that they want to do good. And they want to be the kind of person that when a bad situation is happening and they pull up, people feel better because they know the good guys just got there.
Steve Bowers and Jimmy Leach with you. This conversation will continue at Tennessee Underground.